Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books, and I've been covering Disney and Marvel pretty closely these last few months, Warner Bros. Discovery as well, if you follow the channel. And there is unfortunately a total disaster going on at Marvel. Kevin Feige overdid it. He stepped out of what would be a coherent and useful Marvel universe. They took Marvel Phase 4 and just turned content over to producers and essentially let them do whatever they wanted to do. They were not concerned about continuity. They were not concerned about quality. They were not concerned about fans. And they have fans upset with them. They have stories that really no longer interrelate. And they have quality problems that are even out in the public where even Disney is talking about, yeah, we need to have a quality oversight board because we can't really keep track of the quality of what we're doing. And we know Phase 4 is really not as good as it should have been. And hopefully Phase 5 will be better. So now what they have to do is cut back on Disney Plus shows. They can't produce as many shows. Not because they wouldn't want to, but because it's absolutely ridiculous to produce as many shows as they have been producing. You know, you would think they could kind of determine what their capacity is to be able to produce these shows and maintain a certain level of quality, maintain integration with the story. It's part of the production planning process. So it's something you figure out up front. You're working with experienced people. Why couldn't you do that? Because they decided to go with the ideological kind of woke content and to just let people do as well whatever they wanted to do with these franchise characters and just express yourself and take your own vision. And that's fine, but then there's no coherence and there's no coordination. And this is why Marvel is in a state of total collapse. It is a total disaster. Let's get into the first article. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give it a thumbs up. This is from The Direct. Disney Plus to release fewer Marvel shows, confirms CEO, and that would be Kevin Feige. Marvel Studios will be slowing down its projected releases for Phase 5 and Phase 6 MCU series on Disney Plus, as confirmed by President Kevin Feige. The reception to Phase 4 was mixed, to say the least, something that's sadly leaking into Phase 5 as well, with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania currently holding a rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes. By the way, who should be accountable for this? Please put it in the comments below. Shouldn't someone be held accountable for quality problems? Shouldn't someone have to give back a bonus or maybe resign? It seems like somebody should be held accountable. Not too long ago, it was rumored that in response to these worries from the wider audiences, Marvel Studios would shift to focusing on quality over quantity. Okay, let's just make quality. You want quality instead of quantity? Sure, that's easy. Let's just switch the one queue over to another queue. This meant the company was completely reevaluating its future slate. Not long after, 3 specific Disney Plus shows were rumored to have been heavily delayed. What If Season 2, Echo, and Agatha, Coven of Chaos. Additionally, Blade got a reset, and Armor Wars supposedly is now being made as a movie instead of a series, but to me it looks like a hell of a lot like a cancellation. We'll have to see what happens. Kevin Feige confirms slower Disney Plus release rollout. Speaking to Entertainment Weekly, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige spoke candidly about the amount of output that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is currently pushing, particularly on Disney Plus. After referring to a Saturday Night Live sketch that poked fun at how frequently the MCU is putting out series, Feige admitted that the sheer volume of projects has made it more difficult for the studio to tap into one of its most impressive feats, its ability to hit the zeitgeist. Because basically there's no time for people to see all of the shows, but why would they want to watch all of the shows if they know that there are quality problems? And then why would people want to watch any of the shows if they know that there are quality problems and they're not entertained by them? This is pretty basic stuff in terms of production. You know, when you're producing something great, you know it. When you're producing something that's mediocre, you also know it as the producer of all of this content. Feige knew that this stuff wasn't up to snuff, but that wasn't the point. The point was they're producing basically endless amounts of woke content and wiping the slate clean from the prior Marvel Universe, Stan Lee's Marvel Universe. Now this is Kevin Feige's woke Marvel Universe. That was kind of the whole point. Quote, I do think one of the powerful aspects of being at Marvel Studios is having these films and shows hit the zeitgeist. It's harder to hit the zeitgeist when there's so much product out there, and so much content, as they say, which is a word that I hate. The MCU producer continued by affirming that the rate at which Disney Plus shows release will be reduced in order to give each project a chance to shine, which is the same thing they said about Star Wars movies. People don't hate the Star Wars movies. They don't hate the woke version of Star Wars. What we need is just less Star Wars. Like, well, you know what? It's true. You can have less people hating your shows if you produce less of them, but it's got to be a lot less of them. And for example, She-Hulk would have been not a great show, but it would have been much more accepted if it was one like single special as some 2-hour event or something. They could have done that with She-Hulk. It could have still been bad, but it wouldn't have been as insulting and destructive to their brand. But we want Marvel Studios and the MCU projects to really stand out and stand above. So people will see that as we get further into Phase 5 and 6. The pace at which we're putting out the Disney Plus shows will change, so they can each get a chance to shine. After being asked whether this change of pace would mean spacing out the release of shows or releasing fewer shows a year, well, what else could it possibly mean? Feige responded, both, I think. Marvel Studios is changing course. The reception of Quantumania truly embodies the rocky road the MCU is going down, which may worry fans since Paul Rudd's movie came after loads of complaints and feedback. However, it is important to note that any major changes Marvel Studios might make for the better when it comes to shows or movies won't be felt for a long while. One has to remember that they work on these projects way ahead of time. Many future movies or shows are too far into development to make any sizable changes. The earliest of some of these systematic changes could truly be seen is next year, either with Daredevil Born Again or Captain America New World Order, both of which will be entering production in March. Some changes can already be felt. However, 2021 held 5 Disney Plus series, while 2023 only has 3, though fans don't even have an estimated release for any of them, so the debut of the next streaming show is a mystery. Hopefully Marvel Studios can pull its act together and change course, finally getting more of that positive praise it was so used to. It would be a shame for the whole MCU to collapse before getting to Avengers Secret Wars or the X-Men. The next Disney Plus show to air is suspected to be Secret Invasion, which was most recently set to release in spring 2023. Just some personal experience. I published a comic book universe. Before I published that universe, I got to sit down with Jim Shooter, who was editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics and also launched Valiant Comics and a couple of other comic book universes. And when we sat down and talked, one of the things that he said to me that was shocking was when Valiant Comics was so successful and it was selling hundreds of thousands of copies per issue of their comics and making a lot of money. They were making very, very good money. He told me, one of the things we planned to do, and they never got this far, and Jim was kicked out of the company, his partners basically stole it from him, was they were going to limit the number of titles they were going to do to 16 titles a month, maybe 18. And then I said to Jim Shooter, I said, Jim, why would you limit it to that number of titles? Marvel at the time was doing like in the 30s or 40 titles a month. And he said, Adam, that is the number I can do to keep them good. It can't, the continuity can't be done. They just can't consistently be good and maintain and respect the reader if you do more than 18 ongoing monthly comic series on a regular basis. And I was still flabbergasted. I was like blown away. You could make so much more money if you just make more of them. I was young then, and I realized, no, you truthfully can't, because you can't just do unlimited amounts of really good content. It's not actually physically possible to do that. Whether it's comic books or movies or films, whatever it is, there is a limit to what you can do, and you can exploit the brand, but it can only get stretched so far. And speaking of stretching the brand too far, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania off to upsetting start on Rotten Tomatoes. While Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania looks to make a splash as the MCU's first Phase 5 movie, its Rotten Tomatoes score has caused some initial concern. Okay, so the Rotten Tomatoes score is not so good. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is currently listed on Rotten Tomatoes with a 63% tomato meter, scoring from 70 critics' reviews, one of the lowest ratings in MCU history. For perspective, Phase 4's Eternals from November 2021 opened with a 59% rating before becoming one of the lowest grossing films Marvel Studios has ever made. Reviews have been less than positive for Quantumania overall, with many feeling as though the movie was held back by its MCU ties and hollow emotional story. Inverse noted in its review that Quantumania feels more like a building block than an actual movie, describing it as 3 movies jostling for screen time, while being completely overshadowed by the overarching MCU narrative. The problem with Quantumania is that it's not a movie, it's a building block. These are 3 movies jostling for screen time within Quantumania: Scott and Cassie's father and daughter story, Janet Van Dyne's repressed guilt over Kang's origins, the Quantum Realm's long fight to overthrow the tyrannical Kang, but they're all overshadowed by the MCU of it all. The result is an undercooked, overstuffed action movie that feels like a shadow of better pulpy adventure send-ups before it. So this is the problem with not focusing on producing quality, not focusing on continuity, not listening to fans, not understanding, there are people that deeply care about this material. If you just respected the material and the stories, You would consistently have really, really good movies, TV shows, games, whatever you wanted to produce. It could all actually be good. But this whole idea of, no, we need to have representation more important than story. You can't support producing something good with that. It just doesn't work, as is evidenced by Ant-Man and the Wasp and the response to all the Phase 4 content that now has to be radically changed, which they can't even change because they already have it in development. What a complete mess. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Do you understand and kind of see as well, like, this is a collapse of Marvel. This is a runaway train. You don't get to actually just turn around a train that flies off the tracks. It just kind of goes off the track. You could reboot things, you could start over again, and as long as it was good, people are always willing to take a look. If you think of The Mandalorian for Star Wars, that was something people were willing to take a look at and did get people excited and enthusiastic about Star Wars again, even after they produce some terrible Star Wars movies. It's always possible. You can say, no, I would never want to look at it again. It'll catch your eye. You'll see it if it's good. Is that going to happen with Marvel? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love to see your comments and always appreciate your comments. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.